If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome to IGH Going Rogue. Today's Tuesday, February 11th. And for those of you that are still recovering from the Super Bowl, I feel your pain. I do. I actually wanted Philly to win, so I was very happy with that result. And it was a great game, by the way. Going back to politics, because that's what we do, we have finally been able to get on my good friend Jim Dornan's schedule, the man, the myth, the legend, the ultimate political insider. And there he is, Jim Dornan. Hey, Jim, thanks for joining us, pal. It's about time.
Good to see you, Ivan.
How was that Super Bowl game? Were you rooting for anybody?
Kind of, sort of. I guess I was rooting for my daughter's favorite team, the Eagles. She's a Philly girl. Nice. But I'm a Cowboys fan, so it didn't much matter either way to me.
Yeah, I hear you. Hey, so
I'll be rooting for a long time for a Cowboys Super Bowl.
What a we haven't been able to talk since the election happened, the inaugural. I mean, there's been so many theatrics and so much, I would say, good stuff and so much distractions. But that's typical, right?
Very true.
It's so typical. Mr. Producer, why don't you put that first slide up, and I'll start with a distraction just to make us laugh for a little bit. Dude, for fucking real. I mean, I get that out of there. Holy shit. I mean, I don't know, dude. I mean, there's some people that are very culty, and whatever Trump does, they'll applaud and dance, and it's almost like the Obama crowd. Remember, they would just applaud anything that Obama would do. It was crazy. We have a lot of people on our side that are like that with Trump. And what's the fucking purpose of renaming it the Gulf of America? I mean, is there a strategic reason? What difference does it fucking make?
Well, he's playing to his base, obviously, but I agree with you. And all it does is wound up ticking off and pissing off our neighbors. It's foolish to me. It's unneeded drama internationally
and unnecessary.
Well, and we need Mexico to do things for us. We want them to help us cut down on the border, which we need badly help with. We need the cartels to go away, which we badly need help with. And I mean, what is Trump going to do if they come over and if the cartels come over and hurt us or bomb us in some way? Are we going to go in and drop a bomb on a foreign country?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be diplomatic. It's part of the deal of being president of the United States, and play to your base as much as you want. But I mean, we're going to need them at some point, and they're going to say, you know what, the hell with you.
Yeah, and you know what? It's interesting that you bring that up because, he designated the cartels as terrorist organizations, which, according to U.S. policy or law, maybe it's policy, gives us the authority to go in and fucking bomb the shit out of them, right? Even if they're in a foreign country. So, that is, that's a shot over the bow for Mexico. There are a lot of people that think, we're going to go in there. Well, let's grab a whole bunch of rednecks and drive over and we'll slaughter the cartels. Dude, these guys are, all mercenaries. They hire mercs. They're professional, fighters and warriors that have been fighting consistently for decades around the world in all kinds of tribal wars and real wars. And, it's not going to be an easy takedown. They have an obscene amount of money, unlimited amount of money. They have the best weapons. The only thing they don't have is probably, planes like we do in aircraft carriers. But, aside from that, they have, ground air missiles. They have everything, right? So it wouldn't be a walk in the park. and it would be very complicated because we're going to go into Mexico and go slaughter these people. I don't know. I mean, I think if we have to, we probably will, but I don't think that's something that anybody's hoping will happen anytime soon. But you're right. That whole Gulf of America thing. I just don't understand it, man.
It's needless, and I guess you could argue that, hey, we're not going to help save the Ukrainians from communism, but we're going to go into Mexico. I mean, give me a break. I mean, it's unneeded. It's unneeded and unnecessary.
And what about Canada and Greenland? I mean, it's all part of his style of negotiation, but it's the president of the United States saying this, right?
Right, and I don't know if you know many Canadians. I happen to.
Yeah.
That 51st state deal is a very sensitive subject, to say the least.
Yeah. Dude, when I was at AT&T, we had offices in Toronto, so I used to go up there all the time. And first of all, it's cold as shit this time of year.
Yeah.
And I will never ever go to Canada in February ever again in my life. They tricked me once and never again. It was cold as balls, and I remember I got stuck in this restaurant bar. And the bartender had to give me a ride to my hotel because, dude, the snow piled up. No cabs were coming out. Dude, the bartender was actually doing like an Uber for all the tourists and everybody that got stranded. She had this big 4x4 and she was giving rides 4 at a time, dropping people off at hotels. I was like, I'm never coming to this fucking hellhole again. But
if you think about it, also is that Canada is not a conservative place. The Western provinces are. But that's not where the population is.
Right.
So all you would be doing is adding a bunch of blue congressmen from Canada to the House of Representatives. And I mean, it would be defeat the purpose that Trump supposedly wants.
Right. It would. Yeah, I was about to say, why do you think we don't do that with Puerto Rico or with DC? Because we're adding blues. Same
believe
thing
it or
with
not,
Canada.
Puerto Rico would not be that way. They are much more conservative than people get credit for. DC, you're spot on.
Yeah.
But Puerto Rico would probably be half, 3 and 3.
It's a split. Usually, it goes back and forth, kind of like the country.
Yeah.
So
just look at the governors they've had. They've been mostly on our side, not on the other side.
Yeah. Moderate guys, but we're Republicans nonetheless. And I agree with you.
Exactly right.
Look, he's had a lot of success. He's been successful in controlling the narrative, Jim. And me and you always talk about that. He who controls the narrative wins this thing. Yep. And man, I mean, there's that video, and Elon Musk is the ultimate troll. I thought Trump was the ultimate troll. Elon Musk is the ultimate troll. He changes his fucking handle on Twitter, on X, that says hairy balls. And he has fucking CNN go on the air and say, Elon Musk, who now goes by hairy balls. I'm here, dude. It's just pure comedy. I mean, they're just having fun with the media. But going back to something that you mentioned, that you mentioned before we got on the air is the USAID thing. It's still hot. Things still keep on coming out. I had a CIA guy on last week, and he pretty much said, "Yeah, dude, it's a CIA outfit. That's how we funnel a lot of money and do soft coups and do a lot of shit." There is humanitarian work in there, but there's a lot of corruption, right? There's a ton of corruption. Harry Balls is tweeting today all day laughing that, I don't know how much money we were paying for circumcisions in Africa at an outrageous price, He goes, dude, the price was so outrageous, I decided to get in the game and offer a 50% discount. That was his tweet. And CNN went on the air with that, and I mean, talk to us about your experience. You were talking to me about that, and it's too many hands, right?
Well, back in my swampy days, I was a lobbyist, and I represented I guess you could say, I represented a charity here in the States that was helping out the Sierra Leone people to get back on their feet after the Blood Diamonds War.
Yep.
And so we went to the Senate, and we were able to get a $2 million grant to help rebuild this healthcare system in Sierra Leone. And a lot of people said, well, why are we helping Africa? Well, we are the world's leader. We need to be out there. Otherwise, believe it or not, the Chinese are going to freaking take over everything. And so we have got to be active as the leader of the free world in democracy.
Well, and the issue with Africa is everyone's like, "Fuck, that place is fucking, forsaken by God." But you know what? It's got a ton of minerals, and the Chinese are
It really does. And you know what? I mean, you're supposed to be friends to your friends, right? And so they were having a tough time, obviously. So we got $2 million appropriated to help rebuild it. And so I brought the client into the USAID to nail down, how are we going to get this money? How is it going to be distributed? Blah, 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 blah. And it was a nightmare. I mean, we had the money approved, yet they made us jump through hoop after hoop after hoop and bring on consultants that were, guess what, former USAID staffers. So there's this kind of Beltway Bandit episode going on between, they literally go back and forth between USAID and private sector, and they give each other business every step of the way. So after a year, we finally got $1 million, not $2 million, like we were supposed to. And it's been successful. The country's back on its feet slowly. It's rough. It's third world country, but with the help of the Catholic Church over there, we were able to help out. But going through the nightmare of dealing with USAID was exactly that. It was a nightmare, and
you saw
not
the
at
list.
all what I expected.
And you saw the list of all the money that's being thrown out and just random crazy stuff, man.
Right, and Rubio is right. They have their own agenda. It has nothing to do with whoever's in the White House, and it needed to be
dismantled, right?
Yeah, exactly. Torn apart and rebuilt.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy, man.
I'm not unhappy to see that.
And now we're seeing something with FEMA, right? David, do you have that slide with FEMA? Because that's been breaking today like crazy as well. Why don't you play that?
We're also learning that millions of your taxpayer dollars went to house illegal migrants in New York City. Doge leader Elon Musk wrote, the Doge team just discovered that FEMA sent $59 million last week to luxury hotels in New York City to house illegal migrants. Sending this money violated the law and is in gross insubordination to the president's executive order. That money is meant for American disaster relief and instead is being spent on high-end hotels for illegals. A clawback demand will be made to recoup those funds.
All right, cool. So, we heard that. We heard that a lot during the Biden administration. The illegals were being shacked up in hotels. They were getting room service. They were getting a card for like an EBT card for whatever expenses. And they were getting Medicaid. And dude, that's insane.
It really is. And frankly, it's, the major reason that that Harris lost because of those policies of the Biden administration. Yeah. That way you can actually say that is FEMA carrying out the policies of the Biden administration. Yeah. But as wrong as it is and as bad as it is.
Well, it's also an incentive, right? It's an incentive for these people to come over. They're like, dude, let's go over there. They're giving us hotels or, these people are dirt poor living on the street or maybe homeless or in shacks, and if we can get over there, they're going to put us in, at the Ritz or at the Marquee, with room service and housekeeping and, health insurance and cash.
It's pretty ridiculous. I can see the Capitol from my balcony, and you can see homeless encampments right underneath the New Jersey Jersey Avenue Bridge, rather. And it's ridiculous that we have to deal with that. And it's a result of Biden basically encouraging illegals to come to this country. Now, I think Trump has definitely got the right idea. I do get a little concerned about what's going to go on with farm workers because I will tell you, I know folks that own farms out west, and they're regular Americans are not picking apples and oranges, from the fields.
And also on the cattle side, right? I've talked to a whole bunch of them, but there is something there, Jim. And you remember this during the Bush years, 43, the guest worker visa program. Why aren't these people using the guest worker visa program to bring in migrant workers versus incentivizing illegal workers?
Well, in some cases they are. The guys I know that are using the H-1B program, absolutely, because they know that. They've been rated by immigration INS, and you know what? All the guys had papers and they were all legit. But there are a lot of guys out there that are not using them because it's easy. They get paid under the table. et cetera, et cetera. And I agree. We ought to punish the bad guys and reward the good guys.
Yeah, 100%. How do you feel about Homan has said that we have about 680,000 criminal illegals. If we're capturing about 1,000 a day, that's over 2 years to get just the criminal element out. So the 10 million plus that came in during the Biden administration, we're never going to get out.
Well, not in 4 years, that's for sure. But I mean, I think Holman's probably doing a pretty good job. He's doing what Trump wants. He knows what he's talking about. I feel comfortable listening to him in interviews. And I agree. We got to get rid of the criminals.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need to be shipping our criminals down to El Salvador, but that's a whole different subject.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, hey, I'm kind of all for it, but I wonder if there's some kind of constitutional provision in there. That you can't just fucking, export your fucking people to another country.
Right.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's going to be challenged pretty severely, and the ACLU will be first in line with the first complaint.
That's probably right.
But it is a fun fact of this administration of thinking outside of the box. But
oh yeah.
Look, before Biden, and this is the laughable number that for decades we talked about, the 11 million illegals, but for, we know that number was probably around 20. We know more or less that somewhere between 8 and 12 million illegals have come in during the past administration. You have a very large number of people that, everyone's like, throw them all out. Great. But how? How many buses would that take? How many airplanes would that take? And you got to go catch them, So I heard something that they're asking Treasury to, deputize IRS officers and people like that to help, ICE. DeSantis has said, let's deputize, Floridians or whatever down here. Does it become a witch hunt if we start deputizing civilians that have concealed carry or previous law enforcement, and all of a sudden people start fucking being lone rangers out there?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think there's definitely that possibility. I mean, look at what happened in World War II with the Japanese. We had internment camps, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
I mean, I would hope we never go back to that again. And most of those folks they were Americans, not enemies of this country. So, yeah, I think that the rhetoric has to be toned down a little bit on this, and let's get on a realistic way in which to deal with it. Get rid of the bad guys, let the good guys stay. If there's a way to get them here legally or to keep them here legally, great. They're not taking jobs from Americans. I don't care what anybody says. They're not. No. And you know what? Frankly, they a fair amount.
Look, here's the reality, and I'm always very clear about this, and I get shit for doing this all the fucking time, but I say it like it is, bro, and you know this. The people that are fucking trekking 1,000 kilometers barefoot, across, dirt roads, jumping on fucking on the beast, La Bestia, the fucking train, on top of the trains and all that shit to get to the fucking border and crossing through a desert. Those people are not taking anybody's fucking job. Those people barely know how to speak their own language. They do not know how to read, write. They're the most unqualified labor that this country can possibly receive. So, not to be a dick, but we want to import people that have qualifications, that are skilled, that, can contribute to society other than just pick, vegetables and clean and, take care of cattle. And I think for those jobs, there's that guest worker visa program, and the employer should be penalized, should be fined, and even should face some jail time for hiring illegals. That's one way to stop that, because that type of labor is not going to go get a job at IBM. They're not going to go get a job at Tesla, right? So all of a sudden that's going to limit a lot of the things, but that's a reality, right?
But I agree with you, but the MAGA folks are saying we don't want the smart engineers coming into this country either. which is completely asinine. I mean,
Well, Trump said that. Trump said that. Remember, he said, "Why are we educating these guys in our country and then sending them back to Pakistan and India? Why don't we fucking keep them here? At least the smart
they're paying
ones."
tuition for one.
Yeah, right.
But two, they're smart people.
Yeah.
I mean, Musk wants them.
Yeah.
Zuckerberg
Vivek.
wants them.
Yeah,
you know?
Vivek also said the same thing, and then they went after both of them on Twitter like crazy, right?
I know, I remember. And frankly, you know what? I think it speaks volumes about our education system that these folks want to come over, graduate with an American degree, and get hired by somebody who wants them in this country.
Yeah. Well, it's a focus on STEM programs, right? There's a lot more focus in STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, in India and other places than here in the U.S., where unfortunately there was a lot of focus on the liberal arts, right? And then all of a sudden people graduate with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, and can't get a job, and then they're fucking out there marching and protesting with AOC, But I don't know, man. I think Trump is very determined. He's got a very good agenda on what he wants to accomplish. I don't think he's going to be able to do it in 4 years. And what happens then, because here's a question. You're a DC insider. You have been for a long, long time. Nobody knows. I mean, dive bars, alleyways that people haven't even heard of, brother. And what is the establishment saying? They've been awfully quiet, except for our friend Mitch McConnell. We'll get into him in a minute. But what's going on with the establishment?
Well, there's a lot of anger and not a lot of understanding about where the electorate is right now. I like to use this statistic. In 2016, Trump was able to win 231 counties in this country electorally that had voted for Obama twice. So what does that tell you? They're going from Obama to Trump. So it's not an ideological thing. What it is a loss of respect and of confidence in our institutions. So people were voting for the two guys they thought would mess up the system and, hit the establishment where it hurts, et cetera, et cetera. The establishment finally, after 12 years, is finally beginning to learn that people are angry and they hate Trump, but they can't do anything to get rid of Trump. Yeah. And as long as they still offer up people like Hillary or Jeb Bush, God bless him, I love him, but he's the establishment. Yeah. In fact, the Democrats did it even going from Biden to Harris. It was still establishment. Black woman, yes, but she was part of an old guard that has been here for decades. And so until the establishment, if you will, understands that, then we're going to continue to have people who are willing to take on the system. And frankly, I think that's healthy for democracy. Yeah. Do I disagree with stuff Trump does? Yeah, of course. We all do. Yeah.
But we disagree with, what did Reagan say? If you agree with somebody 75% of the time, they're not your enemy, right? So,
right, exactly. They're your friends. I'd rather have somebody 75% than 0%. Yeah. So there needs to be an understanding of what has failed and why it has failed and what we can do about it. Because, right now, both members of both parties in the legislature and Congress, they seem to be looking just what can save me to get another reelection, and as long as that is the frame of mind of those people in power, then nothing's going to change. And that's the one thing Trump is doing. He's saying, we're going to do it my way. Does he overreach? No question. I'm not sure I want that strong an executive because I don't want to go to a dictatorship. But the Congress is not standing up for themselves. And they're saying, they're lying down and saying, okay, whatever you say. And they're doing it for Trump, and the Democrats did it for Biden. Yeah. And so that's got to change. And I don't know how soon or when, but until they realize that.
We talked about this a lot in 15 and 16, the rise of Trump and the reason right behind it, like you were talking about. The professor, by the way, is one of the most sound people and can take us historically through everything in politics for a long, long time. And we love his dissertations and having him on the show. And we talked about this, right? That, the American people felt betrayed by the political class, right? They felt betrayed by the political class. Everybody running on promises, never delivering, but only getting stronger, accumulating wealth and accumulating power for themselves, and the American people, the electorate, the voter, was completely ignored. Think about that. We're going to go to a commercial break, and once we come back, we're going to listen to the professor walk us through exactly what's going on in politics.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed, because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
All right. Don't forget, use promo code IGH and get your MyPillow mattress toppers, pillows, sheets, whatever. Let's go to the professor. There you go.
Yes, sir. What do you got? Bring it on.
Well, like I was asking you, what's going to happen? What happens? Trump is here for 4 years. We know the rise of Trump was because the people were totally pissed off at the political class. The political class has done nothing to change, Jim. And that's why you got Trump back, because we had some good candidates in DeSantis and others, but the base just said, fuck you. I'm not giving you guys another chance. And how does that change? Is the political class willing to change? That's what, as the electorate has clearly sent a message saying, we don't trust you, we don't believe you.
So, answer one is they're going to have to. Answer two is, so I found Trump's answer to the question about J.D. Vance in the Super Bowl interview very interesting. Yeah. He basically said, no, he's not the heir apparent, because I think he wants Trump Jr. to be the heir apparent, because Vance is only there because of Trump Jr.
Correct.
And they have a very strong friendship.
Yep.
What I have predicted in the last week or so is that Vance gets the presidential nomination and Don Jr. gets the vice presidential nomination. So the problem is neither one of them are Trump Sr. And he's got the charisma, he's got the appeal, much more so than the other two. The question is, can the establishment come up with somebody who can make their case reasonably with that amount of charisma? I'm not seeing anybody yet right now. The people that are mentioning are all good politicians and good establishment people, Brian Kemp, et cetera, down the line. But I think it's going to be a horse race, frankly, in the Republican Party. The Democrats are going through what I think is even worse than the post-Trump period, where they can't decide whether they're going to stay exceedingly far left, and with things like transgender and prisoners getting transgender operations.
They've doubled down on that, right?
What's that?
They've doubled and tripled down on that.
I know they have, and I don't know if a lot of people know this. I know you do, but that interview with Harris, it was obviously done in the primary, where she said, I support, taxpayer-funded transgender operations for prisoners. That commercial was run after every single NFL game this past season. And those voters are not supporting that whatsoever. Yeah. And so, the far left cost them that election. And if they don't, some of them are starting to speak in the right way about it. this guy Fez, who's used to be Bernie's guy, and who I've been on a number of panels with, TV panels with in the past. He's the only guy who's saying stop the identity politics, for God's sakes. And unless you get a bunch of other people on the other side saying that, they're going to continue to lose and lose big. So it'll be interesting to see.
I agree with you, by the way, that it is by far the best thing that can happen is if they stay way the hell out there in the end zones, because no matter who we run, we should probably win. But do we stick with the MAGA brand moving forward? Does the Republican Party reform and find, its legs, or here's a wild card? Are both parties dead, and it's really just now about personalities?
Well, that's an extremely good question, and the answer may be yes to that.
I know, because look at Obama.
Again, I don't see anybody on either side right now who's got Trump's charisma or personality. Somebody will rise to the top. No, they normally do. Will it be enough? I don't know. I don't see Vance with that kind of appeal, frankly. And so I think it'll be a full out establishment versus MAGA war on the right side. And I think you'll see the same thing on the left side with the hardcore Gen Zers going over the edge on the transgender and other issues, climate, except Israel versus Palestine. And I don't know who can cover that gap on that side either, frankly. There are a couple of the Democrats have a fairly good bench. The problem is they're not using it.
What do you think about Gavin Newsom?
I think his days are long past.
Really?
He's very well spoken.
I think
he's good
he's
looking, all that
dangerous,
other crap. He's in charge of California.
Yeah.
California is a disaster,
Yeah.
frankly. San Francisco and LA, good God, you couldn't pay me to live out there.
Right.
I think the Democrats' best bet are people like Gretchen Whitmer up in Michigan. Yeah. She's well spoken. She's smart. She's not a nut job on the left. Yeah. And they've got a couple other governors. And I think that's where we got to go on the right is we need to go to a governor who's got executive experience and stay out of the freaking House and Senate.
Man, I would love to see, and we talked about this, either Governor Youngkin or Abbott in Texas.
I think Youngkin. I don't know how old Abbott is, but Youngkin would be phenomenal. His name
He's
always
our age,
comes
yeah.
up, and he's handled Virginia incredibly well. Yeah. So,
former Carlisle guy. He's solid all around.
Completely well liked.
Yeah.
Good fundraiser. He's not a whack job. He's a very reasonable human being, and frankly, they're running again on bringing down those car taxes in Virginia.
Yeah.
You know that. Yeah. So, those are the right issues. Those are people every day, get up in the morning. I got to deal with this car tax, issues that people want to get rid of, not transgender schools, for God's sakes.
Dude, how did they go that crazy, man?
I don't know. I thought I was watching closely, and apparently I wasn't. They went from 0 to 60 over there, and there are a lot of reasons. Biden waited way too long to get out. Harris did not have any time to take up any normal positions or get back to the center at all. There are a ton of things they did wrong on that side, and frankly, they're not doing anything to fix it.
No, not at all. And it's bizarre because you look at where when they're voting to pick their new DNC chair. Raise your hand if you think Kamala Harris lost because of misogyny and racism, and everybody raised their hand.
I know.
And you're like, dude, you just got the ass kicking of a lifetime, and you're tripling down on this crap. She was a horrible candidate. She was fucking stupid and probably drunk. And talk about drunk and stupid. The hypocrisy on our side, because we have a ton of it, right? We have a ton of hypocrisy. We talked about Joe Biden being a walking zombie, didn't know where he was, who he was, and we have McConnell. Why isn't anybody calling for fucking cocaine Mitch to go to a fucking nursing home?
I agree. I agree.
That's the biggest hypocrisy of all.
At least we moved him out of leadership.
Yeah.
I mean, so, and Thune will be a very good leader. I think Cornyn would have been a good leader too, or Barrasso. But yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. I mean, these older guys, I mean, I hate to say it because I love Chuck Grassley, but he's getting there too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we've got to be persistent, or consistent rather, in our views on this. And I mean, Biden had no business being in the White House. No business.
None. We talked about that.
Year or two.
Talked about that in 2020. The guy was hiding in his basement. He was just, you know, you called it too. You said, dude, Biden's running the perfect campaign. Is not campaigning. It's just letting Trump be Trump and beat himself. And
Exactly.
you know, and fuck, dude, that was the most disappointing fucking election. I think second to Romney. You know, because Romney should have won that election, and you know, he just didn't answer, didn't respond. He let the whole binders of women, you know, draw this caricature of him and etc. What do you think is going to happen from now to the midterms?
I think Trump's going to be able to, if the Republican infighting is pulled in a little bit. I don't know if Johnson's quite the guy to do it, but we have to depend on him. He's the only guy to do it unless Trump decides to get day-to-day involved, which I don't think would be a great idea for the president to be dealing with legislation other than laying it out, saying this is what I want, go do it. So the problem is with those tiny, tiny margins in both houses, it's going to be really hard. I mean, we're already going through it with reconciliation. Yep. You know, Johnson and Lindsey Graham are button heads right now over process. Not even talking about what's in the bill. We're talking about process, for God's sakes. So if they can get beyond this, and you know, you've got guys like Mike Lawler on the middle, who's got to hold his seat and has to be reasonable and moderate to win that New York seat, and then you got Chip Roy, who doesn't have to be reasonable and moderate out in Texas, and they're the ones who are going to butt heads over what's going on with the SALT tax, i.e., the state and local taxes in the blue states, and versus spending cuts. So, I mean, can we come to? I mean, everyone thought, oh God, we got the triple threat now, or whatever they call it, the sweep. No, it's not going to be that easy because there are disparate ideologies in each house and the House and the Senate rather within our party. And so I know reconciliation is set up to avoid that, but with a 1 or 2 votes, I'm not sure they're going to be able to do it. They've got to compromise among themselves even before they start compromising with the Democrats.
How does our bench look?
God, that's a great question because it's something I've been thinking about a lot over the last.
Yeah, and you're involved in a lot of races all the time, right? For House and Senate. What does our bench look like, man? Honestly, do we have the up and coming Marco Rubios somewhere out there? The JD Vances, maybe, because JD Vance, you know, if you look at him, he's smart, articulate, you know, maybe not as charismatic, but you know, like Trump, but he's sharp.
No, I agree. I haven't seen anybody rise to the surface yet. And on the GOP side, that's going to be tough with Trump at the top of the surface.
Yeah.
But there are going to be guys who find that what I call a happy medium between supporting Trump and not looking too much like Trump. Because, I mean, we were going off the air. We were going through the numbers on Trump's numbers with women. And
yeah, why don't you pull up that poll, David?
There's no way if we don't do something with women that we're ever going to win again.
So if you look at that poll, I mean, that's crazy. Overall, you know, he's got a 53 approval and a 47% disapproval. You know, so it's tight, man. It's not this massive, you know, approval.
Exactly. And one false move, and I mean, that could be beyond anyone's control of a foreign policy snafu or a war that we didn't want to get involved with or anything. The tariffs completely backfire and inflation goes through the roof. I mean, all of that stuff goes out. All of that stuff has effect, and then the status quo goes out the window as far as who can win and who can lose.
And look at the numbers there on the gender, right? So 60% of men approve versus 40%, but you go to the women, and 47% approve and 53% disapprove. So that's really tight. But he wins on every other demographic. You look at the under 30, he's at 55. You look at 30 to 44, he's at 52. You look at 45 to 64, he's at 56. 65 plus, that is 50-50. That's an interesting number right there.
Yeah, well, that's because the Democrats have been very effective in calling this the Project 2020 stuff as eliminating Medicare and Social Security, because that's what that's in response to right now. And hopefully that goes away very quickly as soon as this reconciliation process comes to the bitter end, and we get the tax cuts back, we get some border control, and we get the main things that Trump ran on, and and so that will hopefully solve itself. But again, it's wait and see. You don't know
how much time do we have, Jim. I know you're limited time. If you got time, I got some more questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So we don't know about our bench. What about the Democrats' bench? You said that you thought they had a deep bench.
I think there are people that are in the center of their ideology that would appeal to the American voter. Again, Gretchen Whitmer, I think Amy Klobuchar to a certain extent. But if they continue this launch or this lurch to the far left, then forget about it. It's just not going to happen. So that's why we need to be watching incredibly closely and making sure we don't do the same thing and going off the, over the top, over our ski tips, if you will, on ideology. I mean, this country is a moderately conservative country, where we're probably at around 55 or 60% conservative. And that's not a huge majority, but it's enough to win. And we need to govern like that.
All right. So with that said, how do you explain Tulsi? How do you explain RFK? How do you explain others like that?
That's strictly
like
Trump.
Elon Musk, Joe Rogan. I mean,
it's all personality with Trump. It's like who Trump likes. I mean, I was in that office for 3 months, and I saw him up close and personal. I know how he reacts to people, and how when it comes, it's loyalty, frankly. And those guys have professed forever loyalty to him, and that's what he wants. And
but these are former Democrats that have moved away from the Democrat Party.
Well, Tulsi was never a hardcore D. She was always kind of, Hillary was making fun of her during that campaign. And then RFK, I don't know if anybody's ever going to be able to figure that out. But no, I think ideology to a certain extent doesn't play a role with Trump when it comes to people close to him.
Boom. You're exactly right. Because that's what I keep on telling everybody. Everybody says, he's a conservative and the conservative movement's alive. Trump is not a conservative. Trump is a pragmatic business guy. That's exactly what he is. And he's going to go and pick pragmatic issues that make sense, and he's going to use common sense, right?
No, 100%.
He's not an ideologue, So all these hard right ideologues that are, anti-gay marriage and in their gay bashing and anti-abortion and all that. And look, I get that. I get, the pro-life movement and all that, but it should not be front and center in the elections. Those type of wedge issues always end up getting in trouble. I mean, I saw a poll in this last election that said that a lot of the women that voted for Kamala was because of reproduction reasons, or rights, as they call it. They didn't care about anything else, which is amazing, right?
It is, and it's true too. And they misused it as an issue during the campaign, to be honest with you. Hell, they had a statewide referendum in Kansas, one of the most conservative states in the country, and the pro-abortion side won.
Wow.
Why? You know why? Because they presented it to the farmers as a libertarian issue. Do you want the government making these kind of decisions for you? Nothing about unborn, nothing about abortion, none of that. It was a liberty issue. Do you want the government making these decisions for you? And the farmers are like, hell no. And they supported the abortion side.
And I know you're a pro-lifer, down to the core, and with an amazing, beautiful story behind that too, which is just validates why pro-life,
No question.
If you want to talk about it, feel free. But, I still think that, on our side, we should not be leading the charge with that like the left leads on abortion.
I agree completely. And we're referring to my daughter. We made the right decision on putting her up for adoption when there was somebody out there who could take better care of her than I could when I was in college. And the fact that she and I are close now and have found each other, and you know what? I made the right decision. And I will talk about that until the day I die.
And you have beautiful granddaughters too, right?
Thank you. And one grandson, one brand new grandson.
Wow, congratulations. That's amazing.
Thanks.
That is amazing. Yeah, man, it's issues like that. But here's the other question, right? Is why do we take these hard stands on especially like gays, and then we have members of Congress tapping bathroom floors at O'Hare looking for blowjobs, right? Or these other guys molesting underage pages in Congress where they have to fucking get rid of pages. Is you take these hard lines of anti-gays and then you end up being in the closet. These guys that go to church, every day and take confession once a week and, and are pounding their chests and then, they're off doing some other stuff, right? Realistically, what people do in their life is their fucking private business. Who gives a shit, right? If it, I remember growing up, I've said this numerous times, is, we used to kid around and be like, fuck it, dude. There's more gays. That means, more chicks for us. That's fantastic, dude. Who gives a fuck? Let them all be fucking gay. But what? How did that start in the party? When did that? It wasn't Reagan, right?
Well, actually, Reagan was the first guy I voted for president. That's the first time I noticed the pro-life issue being so prevalent in party orthodoxy. It was probably there before, but Reagan was the first true conservative to run on our side, for a really long time. Back when, and social issues came into the being with Ralph Reed and Christian Coalition and those folks, and what's his name from Lynchburg, Jerry Falwell. They became part of the Republican coalition.
Yeah.
And so that's why it took such a big role.
Well, and you had Jack Kemp and you had Newt with, Contract with America and all that stuff that kept on following through, right? But look, I don't agree with all this LGBTQ plus, whatever it is, and, the DEI stuff, and I think that's all fucked up, It
is.
It's fucked up. But, dude, let people do whatever the fuck they want, right? But we shouldn't give them special fucking treatment, right? Or special status. And I think that's where it all started to go crazy. And the big criticism, Jim, from the base to the establishment Republicans has been that the establishment never stood up against that, never fought, and they just bowed their head and went along with it, especially with the whole cancel culture that happened the last 4 years. Why? Is it because deeply down inside they take communion with that bullshit?
Say that again?
Is it because deep down inside they take communion with that? They believe in that. They agree with that.
I think that the traditional conservatives' beliefs are in less government, lower taxes, et cetera, and that social issues are secondary. Reagan recognized it differently, as did his staff, obviously. But I think that we're, in some senses, almost going back to that traditional conservatism, because Trump's doing a lot of that stuff, lowering taxes and whatnot. And if the Democrats don't get it, then I think they're going to wind up paying the price of the polling places yet again.
No, I agree. But the argument, and I hate to use the word hate, but the anger. How about that? Anger. The anger from the base towards the establishment Republicans is that why don't they stand up? Why didn't they stand up to Biden? Why did they allow this cancel culture to happen? Why did they allow people to be, doxxed and canceled, ridiculed, destroyed financially, all of that, and nobody stood up and nobody said anything. It was only Trump. And the only reason that's dead is because Trump won. Because if Trump would have lost, they would have tripled down, and right now, we'd probably be freaking, in home arrest.
Well, yeah, and you just answered your own question. Is because we didn't win. We were losing. And we didn't have anybody who was leading the way at the time. And now Trump is on those very issues.
Well, okay, so Trump's got 4 years and he's old. What happens next?
Yeah, somebody else is going to have to step up.
And there's nobody here. I mean, you really think Don Jr.?
No, I don't.
Could it be, you think it's going to be all out open? Abbott, Youngkin, DeSantis, Vance, everybody.
Yeah, I think DeSantis' ship has sailed, unfortunately for him. I just don't think he can make a legitimate comeback. I think you're going to see some new folks or semi-new folks, which is what I would call Youngkin. He's semi-new. He's playing his cards right.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in wait and see mode. And I think there are some other folks out there doing exactly the same thing.
What do you think about
I think
Rick
Josh
Scott?
Hawley's going to probably run. Right off the top of my head, there are going to be others like that.
Rick Scott?
His ship may have sailed as well.
Yeah, he lost his senatorial leadership, right?
Yep. Wasn't even close.
Yeah. But that was McConnell too, though.
Well, yeah, that's why you don't mess with Mitch.
Yeah, I know. Somebody
even an old Mitch.
Send him to a nursing home, man. So we got 2 years. We've seen a cabinet that clearly tells you that Trump is on a mission. He is not the same Trump of 2017.
No.
I mean, this guy is sound. He gets it. He knows where the bodies are. He knows who the good guys are, who the bad guys are, and he knows what needs to be done. His cabinet clearly reflects that. Who do you like? Who do you not like? Who are you concerned about?
Boy, good question. I like the Rubio pick.
Yeah.
I think it's a natural for him.
Yeah.
The other guys I don't know much about. I'm worried about Kash Patel. I'm worried about Hegseth. I'm worried about Tulsi. I'm worried about RFK Jr. I think Linda McMahon is probably a great choice for education.
Yeah. Pam.
Bondi, I think, is a great pick as well. Yes.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Who else is out there? I mean, I don't know anything about the commerce guy, Burgum is probably good for interior.
Yeah, I think the rest are pretty safe and pretty stable. I think the ones you mentioned are the ones where there is, the verdict is out, right?
Right. There are questions.
I think a lot of people are excited about Cash, the ones that want to see Cash go in there and just crush the FBI and get rid of, or identify if there really was any wrongdoing, and if there wasn't, then say so. Right?
Yeah, I worry about long-term effects. I mean, I think that we need to be real careful right now as far as terrorism is concerned. I mean, ISIS and the Taliban ain't going away. One of them is now in charge of Syria, as bad as Assad was. We've got somebody in there worse. I mean, my Middle Eastern contacts are like, Turkey is not helping us out over there at all. Syria is even worse than it was before. And we need to be really careful about the Iranians completely aside, there are other folks we need to be worried about, need to pay attention to, and we don't want to toss aside those that can keep their eye on that, or who know how to keep our eye on that. Just for the sake of making a change.
Radcliffe.
Yeah, he's a great pick.
Yeah, I agree. Yep. That's solid, right?
Yep. He's a smart guy. I think Waltz will be a smart guy too.
Yep.
There's some good guys in there. I agree.
So going back to RFK, I don't want to say he's a kook or an anti-vaxxer. I think he's got a lot of good positions, especially on the food, right? I think health is very important, and he brings it up a lot, and has demonstrated why. And we look at examples on food and stuff that's allowed here and not allowed in the rest of the world because it's contaminant and bad. I don't know, man. I guess, let's see what happens with him.
Yeah, the vaccine stuff is concerning. I mean,
Yeah.
what Trump did at the end of his term with COVID,
Yeah.
I think is proof that vaccines work.
Yeah.
And so, there's nobody. I'm an old Don Imus listener, and he had a bunch of people on that show with the autism and the immunizations. That's never been proven, and it's. I mean, I get that these people are concerned and worried about their kids. I understand that, but let's not go making blanket conclusions based on one or two or three cases.
Well, you know what? It's interesting you bring that up because I'm going to have Dr. Suzanne Humphreys on my show. I think it's later this week or next week. She's a world-renowned nephrologist, and she's questioned the validity of vaccines, and has done a lot of studies on them, and goes back. Listen to her audiobook, which is fantastic. And he goes, well, is it really the vaccine or is it that conditions have changed, right? And she goes and talks about, early 1900s, there's sewage in the streets.
Yep.
And it flowed into the rivers where everybody drank their water from.
Right.
And, so there's a lot of components. And look, I think there's going to be some truth, like in everything we always talk about. There's multiple sides and the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
100%. I think, Big Pharma plays a huge role in pushing and making dollars because that's what their responsibility is profitability to their shareholders. But
yep.
Let's see what RFK does. Tulsi, I don't know, man. A lot of people like her. I was never a fan of Tulsi. I was never a fan of Tulsi when she was a Democrat. I haven't been a fan of hers. I don't know.
The Snowden stuff is what gets me with her.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a traitor, and she needs to call him a traitor.
Yeah.
Who knows what kind of damage? We may never know what kind of damage he did, but he needs to be in jail and stay there forever.
Yeah, and look, if we wouldn't know a lot of stuff if it wasn't for him, but he should have done it another way.
Exactly.
Not going to Russia, so
right, and hiding.
That's kind of a problem, if but I don't know, bro. I don't know. I'm really excited about Marco. I hope that the administration can take off from where it was trying to leave in 2020, which is to try and get American companies out of China and bring them over to the Western Hemisphere where we have free trade agreements. That would really make the Americas a really strong trading bloc and a safe trading bloc and a lot less illegal immigration for sure.
Agreed.
But
Agreed.
I don't know, man. I'm an optimist, brother, but 4 years, as we know, is sometimes an eternity when it comes to an election cycle, but it's short when it comes to an administration. Isn't that weird?
Very true. Very true. It'll be interesting to watch.
All right, brother, I'm going to let you go. What's your predictions for the next, rest of the year, 6 months? I guess the rest of the year is impossible with Trump. But how about the next 90 days? What do you see happening?
I think we get significant border control legislation and significant tax cuts.
Oh, I hope so. You think we can get a tax bill passed?
I do. I think you're going to see some Democrats jump on board as well.
Is that right?
Yeah, I do.
Well, you got your finger on the pulse, man, every day. You're right on the hill. You're the DC insider, the professor, the one and only Jim Dornan. Thank you, Jim. We appreciate
Thanks, Ivan.
you.
Good talking to you, buddy, as always.
We got to get you on the show more often, man, like we used to.
I'm here to serve.
We got to carve out a day of the week where it's the professor's class.
You got to get me that walk-on music.
Let's do it, man. We'll get it. I can't remember. What song was that?
Everybody Wants to Rule the World by
There you go.
Tears.
Mr. Producer, next time we get the professor on, we got to walk him on with that one. All right. Thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate it, buddy.
No problem.
All right. Take care.
Yep. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned. Like I said, Jim Dornan is a true DC insider. He is a true professor, academically sound, Catholic University as well, poli-sci major, has worked on the Hill, been a lobbyist. He was with President Trump at Trump Tower when he walked down the escalators. He's been in so many campaigns that it'll make your head spin. And maybe next time or one of these times when we come on, we'll have him walk us through some of his most renowned campaigns, some of the funny anecdotes that have happened. And I forgot to bring up with Jim the 2010 election and that girl up in, I think it was Pennsylvania, O'Donnell, when she had to come out and say, I'm not a witch. Hopefully we're not going to get crazies like that anymore, and we'll continue winning. But till then, till tomorrow, MAGA, keep kicking ass, work it, push it, never give up, and don't take shit from anybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.